Chapter 1.3 Ascended to Godhood. Keila woke up in the same courtyard in the Divine Dimension where Abraham and Joshua had been before her. Was she dead? The last thing Keila could remember was a sharp pain and her screaming her lungs out before everything turned black. Thinking about it that way, she probably was dead. But if that was the case and she was in the afterlife, where were her mum and all the spirits she had seen in her visions? The courtyard was empty and it had a very ominous feel, albeit it was also at the same time a very peaceful and beautiful place. She made her way to a pond with a glittering water. She looked down in it and she could see it. Her body attached to the divine detector machine with the angels kneeling in front of her as if they were praying to her. The same people who last she remembered had tried to kill and rape her were now worshipping her. How did this happen? In her struggle to understand what had happened, she closed her eyes and Keila saw a vision of herself on a golden throne with gemstones shining in the light, more beautiful than her senses could comprehend. She had a gut feeling this throne was close by and that Providence had brought her to the sacred place. Keila left the pond and walked through a gate reaching the inner sanctum of the complex. She saw it, the golden throne at the back end of the room. But contrary to her visions, there was a lifeless body in front of the throne. She approached the body and examined it. The body was of an old bearded man in robes, but it was neither Abraham Goldstein nor Joshua. Who was this dead man? Keila examined the body closer. It was a strange feeling. Growing up in war and rebellion, she had seen a multitude of dead bodies, despite her young age. But none of them had been like this. There was something godlike and majestic about this body. Although the fact that the person in front of her was dead somewhat disproved its supposed godhood. She held the hand of the dead divine and closed her eyes. Keila could feel a spiritual connection and she knew who it was. The dead man in front of her was Yahweh, a god worshipped on earth throughout the millennia. Keila opened her eyes and reflected. What did she know about this Yahweh? Evidently, not very much. The significant disconnect between the wealthy minority of humans on Earth and the impoverished majority on Mars had led to a tremendous cultural separation. And the Martians simply did not know much about Earth's history and the gods they followed. It did not matter to Keila to not know much about the Earth gods, as she was a Martian. She could educate herself on the matter with Martian sources when she got out of this place, if she managed to get out of here. Meanwhile, the humans on Eden that were knocked unconscious during the previous psionic blast started to wake up and they began to call out for Abraham, the god of the Edenites. They were filled with fear after the last few days' events and the anxiety got stronger when they did not receive any response from their master. Keila, who was now having a divine god chip in her brain, initially got utterly overwhelmed by all the people trying to connect to her at once. She could feel their pain and their fear, and it took over her senses. Struggling to breathe, she stumbled out of the throne room and instinctively was drawn to the lotus tree in the courtyard. Keila sat down next to the tree, and at once she felt relieved, like the weight of the world was no longer on her shoulders. She sank down in a deep meditative state. Keila spent the next few hours, which felt like eons, meditating and learning about the secrets of the universe, until a sudden white light came in front of her eyes and her unconsciousness was back in the normal dimension.